And again, my name is Masaru Yamada, and I'm from Japan. So I guess you don't need my detailed introduction of myself. But yeah, I'm from Tokyo. Then, as Michael explained, I'm mainly working on, oh, the thing is, yeah. How can I guess on the screens it's okay.
If you're using widescreen, that's probably.
That's the issue. Really. Maybe we can go for it. I don't know. Maybe okay. Anyway, so yeah. So after I used to be a professional translator too. So I worked for Ford company, Ford automotive company as an industrial translator, and I started my own translation service provider. Just Michael told you, and then after I grown up, I went back to school to obtain my PhD in translation studies, and now I'm pretty much devoted into translation studies. But my master's degree was actually in TESOL and / linguistics, so I have some sense to do it. And today I'm talking. My topic today is the English education in Japan, and also as I mentioned, in the age of machine translation, and English education in Japan is of great interest. And for this reason, I frequently got a lot of opportunities for interviews from media. And last year, a couple of times I appeared on the TV, and I was participating in the debate. Somehow they put me. I'm against necessity for language learning process. This girl is talking about, yes, still. But anyway, those are the things we have to think about today. And you cannot really see that this topic is not only the Japan issue. I think the need for foreign language education is, that's not only Japan, but also the worldwide issue, right? And especially after in 2012, the former president of Harvard University, the Lawrence Summers, made this comment. And he said, English emergence as the global language, along with rapid progress in machine translation, make it less clear that substantial investment necessary to speak a foreign tongue is universally worthwhile. So that's that. This is kind of big issue. So anyway, I think it's time for us, the foreign language learning in the 21st century. From that one scholar from the translation studies, Miguel said, the translation technologies are here to stay. Therefore, the pedagogy and the practical implementation in language translation, or generally in any foreign language learning, must be critically reconsidered in the 21st century. So that's the background. So my agenda is, I would like to talk about machine translation, foreign language learning, and also the translation training. And I'd like to introduce the new way of method, like the translation in language teaching, and shifted it to machine translation in language learning. Yeah, actually, that's how can I? Maybe I should not. Yeah, maybe do this, right? But I have a lot of script underneath, so it's yeah, you can. But anyway, all right. Okay, so yeah, this is what I'm going to talk about. So I will give you some background, the machine translation in Japanese English education, and then we move on to. We have to think about the difference between. I introduced translation in language learning versus translation training. And also, yeah, anyway, that's the agenda. So the machine translation in Japan English education in Japan. Just give you some basic information. In Japan, the elementary schools, English itself has been taught from like the 5th grade to the 6th grade in elementary school. This policy has changed since 2000. Is will officially become the compulsory, starting from the 3rd grade and 4th grade in elementary school. And this subject is called the foreign language learning. Well, anyways, for English education is almost compulsory, mandatory subject. And then that continues to like the graduation of the university. So, but as you know, English education in Japan is not really successful anyway. Then now we have the MT, so this is a very huge issue.
I have a question quickly. Is the attitude negative towards language learning as it is here?
In a way, I mean, because yeah, I would say that a lot of people have to learn English anyway. Then I would say like more than half of the students are not really motivated. They just do it because they have to. Yeah. But the government actually try to promote. But you see some conflict. Okay, Ministry of Education, it's called mixed English. They have the English education policy. Their goal is try to produce like the 50% of junior high graduate with the CFR A1 level. And then also the Japanese high school graduate has to have a equivalent skill to CFR A2. And then increasing the number of Japanese high school students studying abroad to like 60,000, or and then also university students going to study abroad, and they want to increase this number. So you see that the feeling that the Japanese government still stick with the English education necessity. But also, on the other hand, this is the Ministry of Foreign. The other ministry has this plan, the Global Communication Plan. What it is it's a continuation from the first term 2014 to 2019, but the GCP 2025 is the mission to eliminate. Well, what it is that they are developing the automatic interpreting machine. Okay, so the goal is eliminate the world language barriers. And so they're developing machine interpreting, and then that can do not only the simultaneous interpreting, but also they want to try to do not a consecutive, but a simultaneous interpreting machine translation. And they want to implement it into the society because 2025 is when we have the expo in Osaka, and we want to welcome a lot of people with these technologies. And it's okay, so those are the milestones. So what I'm saying is, do you see the conflict? That the government, on one hand, try to educate, promote the English education, but also they spend a lot of money developing these kind of technologies. So the Ministry of Education, so the increase is okay. Anyway, so now the machine translations English, that if you want to say, I personifies that machine translations English competence is equivalent to CFR C1. Which is above like A1 or A2 or whatever they are trying to do, higher than when it comes to reading and writing. I will show you some evidence later. But also, as I said, the government spent a lot of money to develop machine interpreting. Then when it comes into the practical use, the maybe listening and speaking skill may also be surpass, C1. So what do you think about this? There are some examples. So the key, the year is 2016. That's when the neural machine translation just kicked in. In particular, this technology has the fluency, like the English using like native speaker like lexical choices and expressions. Those qualities are so high, and also accuracy has improved a lot. But still, the consistency throughout the document has not improved that much. But there's some experiment data, the evidence. On one research, the result of NMT neural machine translation output are manually evaluated for accuracy by comparing it with translations done by Japanese businessman with TOEIC to 960, equivalent to C1 level. And also they have professional translators translate the same text. They compare the quality. As you see, the red is the fluency, and the blue is the accuracy. The neural machine translation got the 4.45 scores, which is higher than the most of those people. Actually, nearly the professional translators. Yeah, so as well as the fluency. So that's what they meant by NMT is on this level. But this is from more like writing, because it's a translation from Japanese to English. But if you look at the other way around, from English to Japanese, you can kind of perceive this as like a reading because you have the English text and translate into Japanese, your native tongue, then you can do the reading. But reading skill is not as high as the writing. I don't know exactly why, but maybe Japanese people are so picky about the fluency of Japanese, or because, yeah, anyway, so it's not high, but still you can say it's almost the professional translators level. So that's what it is. By the way, this is a kind of equivalent conversion. C1 is a TOEIC score 960, somewhere like that. These are the examples. So that from Japanese to English, the top one is the translation from neural machine translation. Then the bottom one is the professional human translations. So that's how they actually evaluated. I conducted a survey 1 year ago with the English teachers teaching English at the Japanese universities. And the purpose of this survey was to find out what those teachers actually, what kind of attitude they have towards machine translation, and also its use in classroom. And one of the questions we asked was how do you position the current English proficiency of machine translation compared to that of your students that you're teaching? And more than 70% of teachers thought MT is better than my students. Okay, this is the motivation. So it's really sad that teachers may not be motivated to teach as well as students are. So what do you think? So, okay, so given that, so is it really necessary to study English or the foreign language? So maybe the first, the opinion is like maybe one can assume that as like a lot of media reports, tend to praise MT, like with headlines like, don't bother learning a foreign language, So that's one opinion you can turn to. But the other one is that a lot of such idea, the first idea, do not seem to be shared by the majority of academics and educators and teachers. So instead, they think machine translation is perceived as another potentially useful tool for language learning rather than a threat to a learning of a foreign language. So I want to take the second position and continue my presentation. Okay, as I said, 2016 was a very important year because this is the year when the neural machine translation was put into practical use. Specifically, the Google translation engine switched to NMT and started being used for English-Japanese combinations. And this is a very nice the paper that you should look at. Kimilova et al. 2022 considered this year was the very important turning point. And they conducted a systematic review on the research. Research is published after 2016 that investigates the utility of neural machine translation for language teaching. And through the very strict screening, only 13 papers are selected for this review. And actually, one of my paper was actually selected for this paper, just bragging myself, actually. But this is very nice. And this paper basically says, overall, it's not a specific, specifically, but overall, there is no doubt that the use of MT is effective in teaching English. And while using MT, students with lower English proficiency can develop their vocabulary and enhance their writing skills. And I'm going to just read this. Okay, MT allows learners to acquire vocabulary and expressions they would not be able to come across on their own. However, it is ideal for experienced teachers to provide a certain level of support and for students to peer review each other's work. So that is very important. And students with higher proficiency can improve their meta-linguistic awareness of the language differences between L1 and L2. So those are the summary of it. So you kind of start getting the idea that MT is somehow useful in language learning. So I want to develop more effective way to use it. So I'm moving on to this. But because I'm from a translation studies field, so I'm more connected to translator training, translation training rather than language learning. So I kind of want to borrow this idea, those things from translation training, incorporate it into language learning. That's the actual my aim. But before that, just to give you the little background and history of foreign language learning and the translations. I mean, before 18th century, the translation is considered to be the oldest method of teaching foreign language, which was widely used for centuries as a classical method of teaching, like Greek and Latin, right? So that this approach later established itself as teaching modern languages, so-called the grammar translation method. Yeah, right? Yeah. And then this was introduced in secondary schools in Prussia at the end of the 18th century and so forth. However, the grammar translation method and also the use of L1 in the classroom was brought into question and consequently criticized along with the development of new language teaching methods known as like natural method, conversation method, or the direct method, and also communicative approach. Yeah. The changes were introduced along with the reform movement of the 19th century based on the assumption that language learning should emphasize like the primacy of speech, like with the emphasis of like speaking and listening first, that kind of concept. So after this, basically grammar translation method just was disappeared, and also translation was excluded from the classroom. But a renewed interest in translation as a part of language classroom practice was begun by Duff back in 1994. And the kind of the shift from emphasis from learning translation as the aim itself of using translation as a means to promote language learning. Then also another contribution is from the author, the Guy Cook. He published this book, The Translation in Language Learning. So this in this book, he actually claimed, I shall argue that for most contemporary language learners, translation should be a major aim and means of language learning, and a major, no, I don't know, whatever, yeah. Yeah, whatever that is. Anyway, then the also the translation study also used to believe the translator training and the language learning are two separate things. But this boundary is becoming very blurred. So I think what I'm trying to say is translation and translation training and foreign language learning are trying to approach each other. Yeah. So what's the difference actually in foreign language learning versus translation training? So this is kind of a summary. You can list up some of those differences, but just an example. So pedagogical translation was foreign language learning. Translation is just a tool for improving language proficiency, or translation is information about the language learner's level of language proficiency. And also the audience is always the language teachers or the examiners. So it's a little different from a translation. But on the other hand, the translation training emphasizes that the translation text is not a tool, but that's a very goal of process. And translation is information about reality contained in the source text, and the audience is target language readers waiting some information about reality. So those are the difference. So 1992 clearly actually distinguished between the two. The interesting division of errors made by students into binary or non-binary ones. That's the distinction between the foreign language learning and translation training. Foreign language learning focuses on binary errors, which are like the elicit the teacher's answer. This is wrong in terms of like grammar, spelling, or the language rules. So it's a rule-based teaching basically. And so that should be the subject to quick corrections, you know. But whereas the translation training emphasizes like non-binary errors, like that requires further discussion, explanation, and elaborations. I like so that those items are provoking the answer. It does not sound right. It is grammatically correct, but that doesn't sound right. So those are the things that in translation training that addressed. So from that perspective, acquisition of translation competence to be a professional translator or whatever is understood as a union of two skills to the ability to generate a target text series of more than one viable term, TT1, TT translation, translated text 1, 2, and N, and for one source text. And then also the translator have to have the ability to select only one appropriate TT from this series quickly with justified confidence and propose that TT is a replacement of the ST for a specific purpose and readers. That reminds you of something like, yeah, exactly the translation process. Anyway, so just a summary. So this is the difference. The foreign language learning focuses on binary errors, and which relates to grammar, spelling, language rules. And in terms of quality, I would say this is like the accuracy errors in translation quality. Whereas the translation training focuses on non-binary errors, and then they have to, the instructor have to teach like native-like selections, you know, with emphasis of fluency. So they are working mainly on the fluency errors. So that's what that is. Okay, so now you understand. So the TILT translation in language teaching is, I think what I'm saying is, in my definition, translation in language teaching, in my definition, is incorporating the elements you teach in translation training into foreign language learning. For example, just imagine when you're post-editing the machine translation output, you have to focus both aspects. You have to correct accuracy errors or the binary errors, and also you are required to correct fluency errors or the non-binary errors. So that's the idea about the TILT, translation in language teaching. Okay, now I want to develop this concept towards machine translation in language learning. Are you guys okay? Okay, okay, okay. This is very popular. So many people say, you know, translation is good, machine translation is good. So this is some just general benefits from the use of machine translation in language teaching. The EFL writing, in English as a foreign language writing, is interfered by L1, right? When they write, the interference occurs from their L1. The learners cannot compose in the same way as the native speakers, of course, yeah, right. L1 and L2 are linked in the mind of EFL learners. Actually, they have a lot of knowledge stored in their L1. Then we want to make the best use of it when we are writing in L2. So this is something that should be actively exploited. And it also addresses the ability of multilingual speakers to integrate various language supports and resources into their opinions. Like that is called like a trans-languaging approach. But also in general, the students, EFL students' reading skill is higher than writing skill. So also this is a very important point. We should, you know, take advantage of their higher skill in reading than writing. Then how can we apply this one? I mean, before neural machine translation came in 2016, there are a lot of researchers and also instructors who gave a shot to use MT in the classroom. But at that time, the BAT model was the dominant method. What it means was that MT translation output was considered a BAT model. And the learning was encouraged by correcting empty errors. You know what I mean? So that's better models. So this was very popular. But in terms of language learning perspective, in language learning, it's like a negative evidence given, then they have to correct it. So it's not very good. Then also that activity relates to post editing, right? So you just pay attention to negative aspect of the output of the MT. But I want to emphasize that I would say good model is possible after 2016 because the MT quality is pretty good. So in this way, we can consider MT output as a good model, and the learner and good model learn good, so that students can learn good expressions from MT. So that's what I want to do. But there's no really way to do this. So bad models, we can use post editing, but which is not good. So if we want our students pay more attention to good part of the sentence generated from MT, we have to a way to do it. Then I would call this method is the MT assisted writing. So how can we do it? So basically, actually, a lot of researchers already tried this, and some papers already available, like D 2020, Tsai, and etc. But it is so we give the students the writing assignment and have them write in their L1 first. So that's the first stage. So they have to write their essays in their mother tongue to begin with. And the second task is, okay, you don't have to translate it, but just write almost the same thing in the target language. So we call that this is the self-writing. But at this point, maybe you should ban students from using MT, right? Of course, right? Yeah. Then the third step is, okay, you have the writing in L1, so just translate using machine translation. And so get the English writing from there. So I conducted an experiment, but I used DeepL for this case. And the fourth, okay, this is 4 actually. Fourth stage, okay, students have to go back to their writing that they got from number 2, and as referring to the MT output, they have to revise their own work they have done in 2. So this is like the machine MT assisted writing. So I think this is one of the scheme that I think we should be useful. But of course, probably in the 5th step, maybe instructor have to give some feedbacks, or you have the students do some peer review. Some general the benefits are the amount of communication increases when they write in L1 first, then switch to L2. I mean, the meaning like the word count increases in this way. Yeah. Also, both syntactic and lexical errors are collected and the complexity increases. So of course, the quality of their writing improves. The more modification is made on a vocabulary level than syntactic levels. That's the tendency we observe. And learners at the lower L2 proficiencies introduce more modifications. But basically, kind of we suspect that those students are copying a lot of parts from MT. Yeah. But if we use this, learners' writing strategy change, and the EFL learners are usually better in reading than writing, as I said, and the raw MT outputs are rarely used as they are. I mean, yeah, that's a bad thing about it. But the students use dictionaries, internets, and they have to do a lot of searching. They have to have those skills to justify what they did. So those are the skills that we can import from translation training. Okay, so basically I almost said almost everything, but in the end, I want to show some of the experiment results in this scheme. So we conducted how their writing actually improves and what kind of learning effect we can get. So this is a work from my master students. It's coming soon. And we recruited 32 college students, second year college students, and their English proficiency is not very good, say for A1, A2 to B1 levels. So what we did was basically we did this, but then we give them the instructions, on this one. So you have to you have 30 minutes to write essays in each stage. Write in English, write in Japanese first, write in English, and also they have to revise with the MT. Then we give one question excerpt from the TOEFL writing test. So the questions is something like some students prefer lecture classes, whatever. So you have to write your opinion on this topic. Research questions, not really, but yeah, from this experiment, we'd like to know, does MT-assisted writing really enhance the quality of students' L2 writing? And also this method is effective or not. This is very complicated, so I don't want to really get into this. But for how can we measure the improvement on the product? So we try to use these two matrix, and also the tools are available. So we focused on the syntactic complexity and the lexical complexity. Yeah, so that's the method we use. Well, that especially this syntactic complexity, L2 SCA, is widely used as a measure of development and proficiency in L2 writing studies. And yeah, also used many other studies. And also we use vocabulary profiler tool to check their, the level of vocabulary got sophisticated or not after they revise their writing with, yeah. There's so many measures to talk about, so it's really so complicated. But basically, okay, so this syntactic complexity looks into like the mean length of clause, like mean length of T units. That's a very traditional way to measure that, and also mean length of sentences and such. For example, like I have a job interview in Tokyo tomorrow, so I have to go there. Is there like a two T unit in one sentence, and the mean length of sentence, mean length of T units is like 14 words divided by T units in 7. But if you change this so into something like because, like the clause, then the sophistication level kind of improves a little bit. So mean length of T unit is only, yeah, it increases from 7 to 14 or something. So anyway, basically this number, as this number increases, the syntactic complexity improves as well. There are so many other things out here. I don't want to get into this, but you see that, if students writing is like something like using, something like this, it is good. Before the experiment, we checked whether those number actually works. And then based on the previous studies, actually Lu and Ali compared the English native speakers writing versus Japanese non-native speakers of English, learning English. Their writing, so the English native speakers writing, the mean length of T unit is 17, which is higher than the Japanese students learning English. It's 13. But then we we use somehow we got just a general translation into English using DeepL, Google Translate. On the average, they get like 16, 15 mean length of T units, which is very close to native speakers writing. So when we looked at this score, okay, so if we use MT-assisted writing, this is up, referring to machine translation result. So that's the predictions. And so we actually collected 32 students writing, and we compared that. So this is a result. It's kind of complicated, but okay, self-writing is their own writing, right? And the middle one is the deep L results. And the last one is their revised final product. So you see, yeah, so yeah, bad, but I mean, but in this case, so this is a mean, a number of words. But as you say, the communication amount increases. So after they refer to the machine translation, number of words increases, which is a good thing. And also like mean length of sentence, mean length of T-units, the syntactic complexity also shows the very similar tendency. And but actually we see the statistical significance in the difference between this machine translation and the final product. So we thought they really copy everything, but not statistically, no. But but I show you the actual example. Actually, they are copying a lot. But so that's the kind of trend. I kind of skipped this one, but also as far as the vocabularies are concerned, so we use the vocab profiler. K1 is the very basic 1,000 words. The K2, if they use it, it's higher. And AWL is academic word list. So we won't expect the vocabularies, those from those lists will be used more frequently after the revision. But the results are, well, to begin with, the average number of words they produced in the writing is 58.125 or whatever. But among that, out of this, 50 words are from the K1 list. So their writing it's not really sophisticated. Most of the words are from this very basic 1,000 word level. So we cannot really expect that much of increase from this one from the beginning anyway. So, but still, we see the similar trend in the semantic sophistication here. But we don't see the much difference from the machine translation result and the final product. So we have to think why this is the case. Okay. So I think basically what I have is this, but before that I show you some examples from some students. Okay, so the student in 17. So this one was maybe this one is actually easier. So this self-writing originally he wrote, so if we study with them, we should find a place where we can talk free. And the deep well got this sentence, and his final product is this. What it means is actually only the blue box ones are ones that remained from his original writing, and the red part is actually the copy from deep well. But still, in terms of this syntactic complexity, of course it increases, right? And another one is this, like this, yeah. Something like this, you see a similar trend. Yeah, a lot of red parts are copied from DeepL. So even though the statistics shows still there's some difference between the machine translation and their final product, but if you quantitatively look at those things, still, yeah, I'm toward the end, so I can.
Yes, do you have any data on the learning? Do they actually learn anything?
Okay, actually, after we conducted this and we selected 10 students come to our lab, and that time we have them the similar tasks, and that time we screen recorded everything, and also we had a retrospective interview with them. We gather data, but we don't have a result yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's something we have to look into for the further analysis. Yeah, so for at this point, so this is a vocabulary So I like to better study, then I prefer to study. That's the revision is made. With my friend was changed to peers. Yeah, you see that. Yeah. One trend is on the left, it's okay. In the self-writing stage, the original writing, how many words they written? Then on the X bar is how many words. On the Y axis is the syntactic complexity. What it means is, no, sorry. I mean, this is a number of words. If the students writes very few words in the original writing, their final product really increases. The less you write on your own, the more you get, the more difference you observe. But also as far as the syntactic complexity is concerned, the opposite. The more the students write on the original writing, the less increase was observed in the final product in terms of syntactic complexity. So that's kind of trend. So that indicates, so we really have to think effective way to use this method depending on the proficiency of the students. That's the implication we got. So I don't have the conclusion, but just looking at my research question, does MT-assisted writing really enhance the quality of students' L2 writing? As a product, yes, right? As a learning effect, we have to, further investigation is still necessary. And as we see, too many copies and pastes from MT are there. And maybe they are not paying much attention to it. Maybe without careful examination. So this is still the issue remains. But I think it's a very interesting topic to go on. So that's all.
On this first question, maybe you can say, does MT-assisted really enhance the quality of students' L2 translation as a product? And that will change the picture, because I think it will help translators do a better translation.
Yeah.
So maybe you can have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of language learning.
Language learning,
focusing on translation. Training.
Okay, Okay, so that's all my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
In the stage 2, when the students wrote in English, the first one in Japanese, the second one in English,
second one in English.
Yes. Can they look at their?
They can, but
only the machine they're not allowed to.
Right.
I have another question on this one. Why did you choose for them to write in L1? Since we are talking about language learning, we encourage students to think in English, for example, or in the target language. So why write? And then this will increase the chances for them to go to translation line.
So that's debatable. That's why I try to merge the concept. Okay, of course the translation was banned, ignored in the language learning class. But I showed the slides. The trend is actually that those two fields are approaching to each other, right? The foreign language researcher says actually the use of L1 is a good. Also, the Guy Cook says there's no scientific evidence that can prove translation when you're speaking in the foreign language, when you're translating. That does not really necessarily mean or interfere the learning or something. So, I mean, do you know what I mean? So, but I know what you mean. But also in this scheme, I mean, we need the L1 lighting because otherwise we don't get number 3, right? So then also what's good about this one is sometimes, students write something on some topic, but if we don't know what they meant, how can you correct this writing? Do you know what I mean? maybe, yeah, maybe that person wanted to say, I don't like Apple. But in the writing, he said, I like Apple. But grammatically correct, but his intention was not.
How about this model? Have them write it M2 and then use machine translation to translate into L1 and let them read and say, oh my God.
That may be that's another approach. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. So
that is actually, I told you, this is exactly the way I tried to learn Danish a couple of years ago. I was using Google Translate, this tool. I wrote my Danish sentences there and translated it into English. And then when I could see whether spelling is correct, writing, no, and whether the words are correct and all this. So that's exactly how I did it. And I think it makes you think in the target language, no?
That's the aim, I think. Huh? That's the aim of language learning.
Language learning.
Yeah, start thinking.
And you could have the same comparison there, no?
Yeah.
Could you?
And no copy paste, by the way. You eliminate that.
Actually, yeah, if you're translating into your mother tongue, then there's no copy and paste. It's great. Yeah.
I was going to ask, when the students were doing this activity, were they aware of the whole activity, what was coming next? When they wrote in L1, did they know they were going to have to translate it?
Yeah, they did. Yes.
Do you think, I mean, of course, they would have produced quite different texts if they hadn't expected to have to translate it after, right? Because then we're probably writing things that they knew how to say in L2 already, right?
I know what you meant, but I was expecting that. But for this student, their English proficiency is not as high as we expected anyway. So I don't think some students just write in Japanese first without thinking anything. Then when it comes to writing in English, they finally realized, oh shit, I could not say this. Yeah. But also, maybe some other students did not try so hard writing this page because they know, right, they can cheat on that too. Especially, some very few students, like 32 students total, but there are 3-4 students wrote like 15 words or 20 words in this stage. Then the final product is like 120 words. So that's really, we should eliminate it from the data, but yeah.
I kind of agree with it. Okay, I agree because now before translation was dismissed as a very useful means to teach English as a foreign language. But now translation is kind of embraced as a good method. But I have several questions. First, the syntax complexity and the words of the number of words are really can measure the quality of the composition, and because the machine translation really can give us a very good sentence. I think machine translation can give us a very direct, but if you really want to get very good essay or very good writing, why not just read them? The articles written by very good writers or native speakers. Compared with traditional teaching methods, what are the advantages of machine translation in teaching English? And English proficiency. I mean, they just okay. First, they just copy and paste, and without looking at the kinds of machine translation products. I mean, it's maybe not really good.
But yeah.
Here is a comment from the chat. They don't hear the question.
Okay.
Can you repeat that question?
Okay, so I guess the question says, basically the way I understand is the, I mean, what do students really learn from using, machine?
If they have a TOEFL test, they cannot.
Right.
Translation in the text.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's the issue. I mean, there's a point. Yes. Okay. So if the students have to take a TOEFL test, I mean, without the machine translation, I mean, can we really say that students has learned from this methodology, right? So I would say, well, we don't know. We need more research. But I mean, there's the case study where in elementary school learning English, they implement this MT. Then the students are so fascinated that we got English and we can communicate with other people. So before they learn like syntactic complexity or whatever, they are so motivated. Then they enjoy communicating the people in the world. So that actually, from the motivation perspective, some researchers says maybe the use of MT in the very early stage is also beneficial. Then also, TOEFL does that really actually proves your language proficiency, right? So that's another thing. You as the intercultural communicators, you have to know to a certain degree to take advantage of tools that, sure.
Just one moment. Yeah. So there is here in the chat a question. Many thanks from Margaret Rogers. Many thanks. Very interesting idea. Can you also say something about possible improvements in metalinguistic understanding, and can this be shown to improve learning?
I had some other example here, but I did not show this slide today. Okay, we have some activities comparing your first language and the target language. For example, cool teacher's bicycle. Okay, cool teacher's bicycle is actually ambiguous. Is that the bicycle is cool or the teacher is cool? The bicycle owned by cool teacher or the cool bicycle owned by just a regular teacher. Cool teacher's bicycle. What I'm saying is that that syntactic ambiguity exists in Japanese language. Then when you write your writing in Japanese, if you have that kind of ambiguity in your own language, that it will be translated the way that you write. So then if you have those students pay attention to why you got the wrong translation, back into the writing, then they realize, actually that's the syntactic ambiguity. They never realize that exists in their own mother tongue. So I think that kind of the meta language awareness also helps the language learning overall. That's what I meant. That's an example.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the presentation, especially with the change we see in the didactics of teaching, focusing first on traditional way of teaching to now more engaging students into the process of learning and teaching. And now this is definitely one study seeing that empirical in nature where students are involved in learning and teaching. Back to the question that Yang asked, whether they end up learning something. I know you haven't really analyzed the results yet, but I believe I have done a similar study, but with the idea of taking corpus and corpora tool into teaching translation. And what I found, in addition to the results that I got, was that students actually learned something in addition to translation, which was a form of incidental learning. They were able to pick up lots of terminology, specific terminology that they did not have before.
Right.
And it's all about not copying and pasting, rather than taking this as part of a model where they, compare it to their own translation and seeing how basically MT did with the original text. So as they look through the entire semester, they were able to, I would say, get lots of terminology as a byproduct of, comparing and contrasting. So I believe it's not just cheating, it's not copying, but there is originality to the work. There is something that is going on as part of the learning process.
Thank you for that. Maybe they did not hear the answer, but I cannot summarize that.
No.
I mean, what we are saying is, what you said is, this kind of learning is actually really encourage some students learn by themselves to begin with, and then also, they pay attention to the good parts of the sentence generated from MT. They can actually learn. Otherwise, it's an incidental learning. Unless they use that, they never encounter the kind of expressions.
To add what you said, and also I don't come from the translation field, but I think it would also help the students compare, because American English is very direct. I think the syntax before. I believe Japanese it's a little bit wordier, to say. So if they look at, if I can say that,
Which is the same as in Arabic as well. It's wordier.
So if they look at the translation, more likely they will get this pattern to write less, probably to mean more. So in that sense, it comes handy, it comes helpful. Just like
I admit that machine translation is helpful, but I doubt in other aspects.
So really, I think the good model, bad model is really related to the level of students' motivation of learning. Some students just get out of everything to get a credit for the class that he took, right? And that for that kind of students, just copy and paste all at once. Maybe for those students, maybe MT is not good. But for those who are motivated to learn, I think this is a very okay, good.
There's a question. Haruka, do you want to ask a question? Are you still online? Then maybe you can just speak it. No, gone. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. But is it time? Oh.
So is there have you thought about a big over effect where using the machine translation could negatively impact their writing in the second language? Because not all the machine translation are made the same. It depends on the quality, it depends on the language pair. So how could that could adversely affect their language learning ability?
The question is there any negative impact on using this MT method, like the not many research has been carried out. But also from the technical perspective, MT tends to ignore certain words. It's called unknown words. So they just, so that like the type token ratio and all that, it's not as good as the native speaker's writing. It's always. So if the technology does not improve, then if we keep using this, then maybe there are chances that we encounter new expressions, but on the other hand, maybe there are a certain group of words we never see. That's one thing. But also what you're saying is that the expression is that, like, okay, we have a Japanese saying, I have a cat tongue, to mean that I'm not good at eating hot food. But if I write it in Japanese cat food, but a cat term, then it translates literally. Then if you don't have the ability to judge that's not an expression used in the English, yeah, that's of course a negative impact, yes.
Not necessarily on the semantic level, even at a structural level. They might adopt certain structures in that language that, for them as learners, they don't recognize that this is not correct, but they think, okay, since the machine suggested it for me, probably I should adopt that option. So
yeah. So yeah, no, it's not directly related to that, but just show some examples. Oh, you don't really. Okay, so this I just wrote this thing in Japanese. Then I met I met my mentor. Okay. Okay, I know what I'm saying is this DPair has some function. Let's say this student does not know what the mentor means. And if you click on this, it gives you some other choices of the words. Then you can say, okay, I met my teachers or something like that. So this is very good thing. What I'm saying is if you have your students do peer work or collaboratively looking at each other, have some discussions, I think using these functions, yeah, the semantically, which one's more appropriate. I think the activity is also good. Yeah, actually, I'm trying to. This is the issue for the low proficiency students. The MT output is too high, above their understanding level. So I think the matching between their vocabulary level and the syntax complexity is another issue. So I'm trying to actually develop some the MT that can be customized depending on the proficiency level.
I believe, back to your question, if there is one drawback to this, learning-wise, with B might probably over-reliance on the machine. Sometimes our students would not really be so much encouraged in my data as long as they have something ready at hand where they can rely on to produce.
Especially if they give consistent results where the machine outperforms there, which is usually the case for these students, right? So the tendency to rely heavily on
So
side effect here.
I know the old way that the Krashen, Stephen Krashen said that I+1. Yeah. So if right now MT is I+10, then they don't get to learn anything from it. So you have to match the levels. I think it's time, right?
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take a
Thank you.